It was a typical day in the corporate office building, buzzing with activity. The employees moved briskly from meeting to meeting, and the sound of keyboards clicking filled the air. Among the crowd was a woman known for her sharp business mind. She was an Arab millionaire, respected in the business world for her success and keen intuition. She had spent years building her empire, which spanned across different industries. Her name was known in boardrooms, and her presence demanded respect. Despite her achievements, she always found herself rushing from one place to the next, often missing the little things that happened in the background of her daily life. It wasn't that she was uninterested in others, but she was always focused on her work. She had a specific routine she followed every day, arriving at the office early, meeting clients, and ensuring everything ran smoothly. Her schedule rarely allowed her to take a step back and observe what was going on around her. That was until one particular morning when everything changed. She had just finished a long meeting and was heading to her office when she noticed something unusual. The office hallways, usually filled with chatter and the hurried footsteps of employees, seemed quieter today. She couldn't help but hear something in the distance, voices. Curious, she slowed her pace, trying to understand what was going on. As she walked toward the source of the sound, she saw something that caught her off guard. A janitor, whom she had seen countless times but never truly noticed before, was talking to a visitor. What was strange, however, was the language the janitor was speaking. She paused, hidden behind a corner, unsure if she was hearing things correctly. The janitor, a middle-aged black man with a humble appearance, was speaking French. She was surprised, but that wasn't the most shocking part. As she listened more closely, she realized that the man wasn't just speaking French, he was switching between languages. He moved from French to Spanish with ease, then to Italian, and even Mandarin. It was as if he was fluent in multiple languages, and each word seemed to flow naturally from him. The millionaire couldn't believe her ears. She had been so used to seeing the janitor quietly cleaning the hallways, never imagining that he could speak multiple languages. The man was just a janitor, after all, and in her mind he was one of the many people who worked behind the scenes. But as she listened to him speak, she realized she had misjudged him. He wasn't just a janitor. He was a man with a remarkable skill that she had never expected. She tried to make sense of it. How could someone in such a humble position speak so many languages? What was his story? She had so many questions, but before she could gather her thoughts, the conversation ended, and the janitor returned to his duties. The millionaire stood there for a moment, still processing what she had just witnessed. She had been so caught up in her own world, focused on her business and the people she interacted with, that she had never really stopped to pay attention to the people around her. For the rest of the day, she couldn't shake the image of the janitor from her mind. Every time she saw him cleaning the floors or pushing his cart down the hallways, she couldn't help but wonder about the man behind the uniform. Who was he really? How did he learn so many languages? And what else did he know that no one else seemed to notice? Later that evening, after her workday had ended, the millionaire found herself reflecting on the encounter. She realized how little she knew about the people who worked for her. It wasn't just the janitor. There were so many people around her who she had never really taken the time to understand. She had always been too focused on her own goals, too driven by her ambitions, to notice the stories of the people who were quietly contributing to her success. As she sat in her office, staring out the window at the city skyline, she decided she needed to learn more about the janitor. She wasn't sure why, but something about him had intrigued her. It wasn't just his language skills. It was the way he carried himself. There was a quiet confidence about him, a sense that he knew more than he let on. She made a mental note to find a way to speak to him the next day, to learn more about his life and how he had come to be in the position he was. The next morning, the millionaire arrived at the office early, determined to find out more about the janitor. She had been so used to seeing him as just part of the background, but now she wanted to know the story behind the man who could speak 12 languages. She spotted him in the hallway, pushing his cart, and decided this was the moment to approach him. As she walked toward him, she realized how awkward it might seem. After all, she was the owner of the company, and he was just an employee. Would he even want to talk to her? But her curiosity was stronger than her hesitation, and she decided to go ahead with it. "Excuse me," she said, catching his attention. The janitor looked up, surprised to see her standing there. He gave a polite nod as if he was used to people not really noticing him unless they needed something. "I heard you speaking earlier. she continued, trying to sound casual. You speak several languages, don't you? The janitor smiled, his eyes lighting up as he realized the woman was genuinely interested in him. Yes, I do, he replied modestly. I've learned them over the years. It started as a hobby and then I just kept picking up more. The millionaire was fascinated. That's amazing. I had no idea. How many languages do you speak? 12, the janitor answered, still with a humble smile. Each one for different reasons. Some I learned for travel, some for work, and others just because I enjoy learning new things. The millionaire was in awe. 12 languages. It was almost hard to believe. She had always assumed that someone like him wouldn't have the time or resources to learn something so complex. But as she listened to him speak, she realized that he wasn't just some simple janitor. He was a man who had spent his life learning, adapting, and growing. And here he was, working quietly in the background, never once bragging about his skills or abilities. So, how did you learn all of them? She asked, genuinely curious. I mean, it must have taken a lot of time and effort. The janitor nodded, his expression thoughtful. It did. But I've always believed that learning is something that never stops. Even if I'm cleaning floors or doing something else, I always try to learn something new. It's how I keep my mind sharp. The millionaire couldn't help but be impressed. Here was a man who had taken control of his own education, despite the odds stacked against him. He had never let his circumstances define him. Instead, he had found ways to grow and develop in his own time, in his own way. For a moment, they both stood there in silence, just looking at each other. The millionaire realized how much she had misjudged this man. He wasn't just a janitor. He was a living testament to the power of self-determination and the value of learning. As she turned to leave, she couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration for him. She knew she had to learn more about his story. He had taught her a valuable lesson that day. Never judge a book by its cover, because you never know the depths of a person until you take the time to understand them. The following days felt different for the millionaire. She had always been focused on her business, always moving quickly through her schedule. But something about the janitor lingered in her mind. His calm, unassuming presence had stirred a curiosity inside her that she couldn't ignore. She had grown up in a world where status and wealth defined people, where your job or position often spoke for you. But the janitor's humility and vast knowledge had shown her that there was more to a person than what met the eye. She found herself thinking about their conversation often. She wondered what else he could teach her, what other hidden talents he might have. She didn't know why it mattered so much, but there was something magnetic about him. It was as if he held secrets, knowledge, and wisdom that no one else could see. She couldn't help but feel that he had a story worth hearing. One morning, while walking through the office, she saw the janitor again. He was pushing his cart down the hallway, his eyes focused on the task at hand. As she walked past him, she stopped herself. She had to speak to him again. This time, though, it wouldn't be a simple, casual conversation. She had too many questions now, questions that could only be answered if she learned more about him. "Excuse me," she said, turning to face him. He looked up, surprised to see her. "Yes, ma'am," he replied, his voice steady but polite as it always was. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said. "I've been thinking about our conversation the other day, and I'd love to learn more about you if you're comfortable with that." The janitor smiled, a modest smile that seemed to light up his face. "I'm happy to talk," he said. "What would you like to know?" The millionaire hesitated for a moment. She wasn't sure where to begin. There was so much she wanted to ask him, so many things she was curious about, but she knew she had to start somewhere. "How did you learn so many languages?" she asked. 12 is a lot, and it's not something many people can do. He nodded, understanding the question. "It wasn't easy," he said. "It took a lot of time, and it wasn't always smooth sailing. But I had a passion for languages. I wanted to understand the world better, to connect with people in their own language. And learning a new language opens doors. It's like unlocking a part of a culture, a piece of a person's life. That's why I kept going." The millionaire was fascinated. She had never really thought about language in that way before. To her, it was just something people spoke to communicate. But hearing him talk about it made her realize that there was so much more to it. Language wasn't just about words, it was about connection, understanding, and empathy. "What inspired you to start learning languages?" she asked. "How did it all begin?" The janitor paused for a moment as if lost in thought. "I grew up in a small town and we didn't have much. My family struggled to make ends meet, but my parents always encouraged me to learn. They believed that education was the key to a better life. I remember one day I picked up a book in a foreign language. It was a small thing, just a few pages of text, but it caught my attention. I couldn't understand any of it, but I was intrigued. I thought if I could understand this, I could understand so much more. And that's when it started. I began studying languages in my spare time. At first it was just for fun, something to pass the time. But the more I learned, the more I realized that this was something I could do for the rest of my life. The millionaire listened closely, moved by his story. She had assumed that the janitor's life had been limited by his job, but now she saw that he had built a rich inner world that few people ever took the time to discover. His thirst for knowledge and his determination to improve his life were inspiring. He hadn't let his circumstances define him. Instead, he had taken control of his future by learning. "And you never gave up?" she asked, impressed by his dedication. He shook his head. "No, I didn't. Even when things were tough, when I had to work long hours just to survive, I never stopped learning. I would read books in different languages, watch foreign films, listen to music in other tongues. It wasn't always easy, but it was worth it. Every language I learned opened a new door for me." The millionaire found herself captivated by his passion. She had never really understood the value of learning for the sake of learning, but now she saw it clearly. For the janitor, language wasn't just a skill. It was a way to understand the world, to connect with people in a deeper way. It was a bridge that crossed barriers and opened opportunities. "Your story is amazing," she said, her voice filled with admiration. "I never would have guessed that someone in your position could have such a rich history of learning. You've really inspired me." The janitor smiled humbly, his eyes twinkling with a quiet pride. "I appreciate that, but I'm just doing what I love. I don't need recognition or fame. I just want to keep learning and doing my best." The millionaire looked at him, feeling a mixture of awe and guilt. Here was a man who had worked hard for everything he had, who had built his knowledge and skills without ever seeking attention. And here she was, someone who had been born into wealth and privilege, someone who had always had access to the best education and opportunities. She had taken so much for granted. For a moment, there was silence between them. The millionaire couldn't help but feel a sense of responsibility. She had seen the janitor's potential, his wisdom, and his determination. She realized that she had a unique opportunity to help him, to offer him something that might allow him to share his talents with the world in a way that he hadn't been able to before. "Have you ever thought about using your language skills in a different way?" she asked. "Maybe in a job where you could do more than just clean. I'm sure there's a place for someone with your talents." The janitor seemed to consider the question for a moment. "I've thought about it," he said slowly. "But I've always been content with what I do. I don't need a fancy job or a title. I've always been happy working quietly in the background. I just want to keep learning, keep doing my part." The millionaire understood his perspective. She had always been driven by success and achievement, but she could see that for him it wasn't about recognition or power. It was about personal growth, about the joy of learning, and yet she couldn't shake the feeling that he deserved more, that he could do so much more if given the right opportunity. Before she left, she made a decision. She would find a way to offer him something more than just her admiration. She didn't know exactly what that would look like yet, but she was determined to find a way to help him take his talents to a new level. As she walked away, she felt a sense of purpose that she hadn't felt in years. She had spent so much of her life focused on her business, on building her empire, that she had forgotten the power of human connection. But the janitor had reminded her of something important, that success wasn't just about what you achieved. It was about how you impacted others, how you helped them realize their potential. She knew she had to do something for him, and she was going to make sure she did. The following weeks were filled with a mix of excitement and uncertainty for the millionaire. She couldn't shake the memory of the janitor's story, the way he spoke about his passion for languages and his quiet determination to keep learning. Every time she saw him pushing his cart down the hallway, she was reminded of the potential he had, of the life he had built for himself, despite all the challenges he had faced. She knew she couldn't just leave things as they were. She couldn't let him remain in the background unseen and unheard, when she knew that he had so much to offer. But at the same time, she didn't want to offer him something he didn't want. It was important to her that whatever she did, it had to come from a place of respect for him, not pity or charity. One afternoon, she found herself once again walking down the hallway when she spotted him. He was cleaning the windows in the lobby, moving effortlessly from one to the next, wiping away dust and streaks. The way he worked, so focused and steady, made her pause. She watched him for a few moments before walking over to him. "Hi," she said, her voice warm but casual. The janitor turned toward her, a slight smile forming on his face as he recognized her. "Hello, ma'am. How are you today?" "I'm doing well, thank you," she replied. "I wanted to talk to you again if you have a moment." He set down his cleaning supplies and nodded. "Of course. What's on your mind?" The millionaire took a deep breath, feeling both nervous and excited. She had been thinking about this for a while now, and she finally felt ready to make an offer. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said to me, about your passion for languages and learning," she began. "And I've realized something. You have so much knowledge, so much experience that could be valuable to others. I want to help you share that with the world." The janitor raised an eyebrow, his interest piqued. "What do you mean?" "I don't just mean sharing your language skills," she said, choosing her words carefully. "I mean, I think you have the potential to do more than what you're doing now. You've clearly worked hard to build your skills, and I believe you deserve an opportunity to use those skills in a way that can bring you more fulfillment." The janitor looked at her, his expression unreadable. She could tell that he was processing what she was saying, weighing her offer. "I'm not offering this because I feel sorry for you," she continued, her voice steady. "I'm offering it because I believe in you. I've seen how much you care about what you do, how much you've invested in your own learning, and I think that's something the world needs to see." He stood there for a moment, looking down at the floor, his mind clearly working through everything she had said. She could see the wheels turning in his head, but he didn't speak immediately. Finally, he looked up at her and said, "I appreciate what you're saying, truly, but I'm not sure I'm the right person for this. I've always been happy with my work here. It's simple, it's honest, and it gives me the time to focus on what I love, learning. I don't need anything more than that." The millionaire understood his hesitation. She knew that for him, his work had always been about simplicity and purpose. But she also knew that deep down, he deserved more. He deserved to be recognized for his talents, to have a platform where he could make a real impact. "Maybe you're right," she said gently. "Maybe you don't need more. But I want to make sure you know that the opportunity is there if you want it. I'd love to help you find a place where your skills can be valued in a way that feels right to you, whether it's a job, a project, or something else entirely. It's your decision." The janitor smiled faintly, still unsure but clearly touched by her words. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I'll think about it." The millionaire nodded. "Take your time. I'll be here if you want to talk more." As she walked away, she felt a mix of relief and uncertainty. She had offered him an opportunity, but now it was up to him to decide whether to take it. She hoped she hadn't pushed too hard. She didn't want him to feel pressured, but she couldn't help but feel that he deserved something more. Over the next few days, the millionaire found herself anxiously waiting for the janitor's response. She continued her usual work, but her thoughts often wandered back to him. She thought about his quiet strength, the way he had shaped his own life through hard work and dedication. She also thought about how easily he could be overlooked, just another figure in the background, when in reality, he was someone who had so much more to offer. One afternoon, as she was heading back to her office after a long meeting, she saw him again in the lobby. He was talking to a visitor, laughing lightly, and she could hear him speaking in fluent Spanish. The way the visitor seemed to listen intently, nodding and asking questions, made her realize that the janitor had already found his way to connect with others in his own quiet way. As she passed by, he looked up and waved. "Good afternoon, ma'am." She smiled and waved back, then stopped for a moment. "I've been thinking about our conversation," she said, her voice soft. "And I want you to know that I'm not going to push you into anything. But I still believe that you have so much to offer. If you ever change your mind, I'll be here." The janitor paused, looking thoughtful. "I've been thinking about it too," he said slowly. "And I've come to realize something. I don't want to give up the work I do here. It's been part of my life for a long time and it's important to me. But I also see what you're saying. Maybe there's a way to combine both things. Continue learning, continue sharing without having to change everything about my life." The millionaire felt a spark of hope. "I think that's a great idea," she said. "There's no reason why you can't have the best of both worlds." He smiled, a genuine smile this time. "I'll keep thinking about it, and maybe, just maybe, I'll take you up on your offer. But for now, I'm happy with what I'm doing." The millionaire nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. She hadn't expected him to make a decision right away. What mattered was that he had taken her words seriously. He hadn't dismissed the idea outright, and that gave her hope that in time he might be ready to take the next step. She left the building that evening with a renewed sense of purpose. It wasn't just about offering opportunities. It was about seeing the potential in others and helping them realize it on their own terms. The janitor had reminded her that sometimes the greatest gifts are the ones we already have, and that it's up to us to decide how to share them with the world. And she knew that, whatever happened, he would always be more than just a janitor to her. He was a man of knowledge, of humility, and of quiet strength. And that was something worth celebrating. Days passed, and life at the office seemed to fall back into its usual rhythm. The millionaire kept herself busy with her work, but she couldn't help but think about the janitor. His story, his skills, and his quiet strength had left a lasting impression on her. It wasn't just his ability to speak multiple languages that fascinated her. It was the way he approached life. He had built his own path, learned out of pure passion, and remained humble despite all he had accomplished. She had offered him a chance to move beyond his current role, but she hadn't expected him to make a decision right away. He had made it clear that he wasn't ready to change his life, but she had planted a seed. She hoped it would grow, but she knew it would take time. One morning, as she entered the building, she saw the janitor in the lobby. He was busy wiping down the counters, but when he saw her, he paused for a moment, as if waiting for her to approach. She smiled and walked over to him. "Good morning," she greeted him. He smiled back, setting down his cleaning supplies. "Good morning, ma'am. How are you today?" "I'm doing well, thank you. How about you?" she asked, genuinely curious. He looked thoughtful for a moment. "I'm good. I've been thinking a lot about our conversation. And I think I'm ready to take you up on your offer." The millionaire's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to decide so quickly, but something about the way he said it made her feel like this was the right moment. "Really?" she asked, her voice soft with surprise. "Are you sure?" He nodded, his expression serious but calm. "Yes, I've realized that I can't keep living in the background hiding my abilities. I've worked hard for them, and I want to use them in a way that can help others. I'm not saying I want to give up my current job. It's still important to me, but I want to do something more, something that will allow me to make a real difference." The millionaire smiled, feeling a sense of pride swell in her chest. "I'm so glad to hear that. You deserve to be recognized for everything you've worked for. I'm still not sure what that looks like, though," he continued. "I don't want to just jump into something for the sake of it. I want to be sure that it's the right step for me." "I understand," she said, her voice warm. "We can figure it out together. It's not about rushing. It's about finding the right fit for you. We'll take it slow, see where your skills can be used, and go from there." He smiled, looking relieved. "That sounds like a good plan." Over the next few weeks, the millionaire worked with him to explore different possibilities. They spent time talking about his interests, his strengths, and the ways in which he could use his skills to help others. The janitor's enthusiasm grew as he realized the potential he had. He wasn't just a man who cleaned floors anymore. He was someone who could teach, mentor, and share his knowledge with others. One day, she invited him to a meeting with some of her colleagues. They had been working on a project that required translation and cross-cultural understanding. It was a big project, involving international clients, and the millionaire knew the janitor's skills could play a key role. She wasn't sure how he would feel about being in a more public setting, but she thought it might be a good opportunity for him to see the value of his talents in a professional setting. At first, the janitor was hesitant. He wasn't used to being the center of attention, and the idea of speaking in front of a group of people made him nervous. But the millionaire reassured him, reminding him that this wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about sharing his knowledge in a way that could help others. When the meeting began, the janitor stood at the back of the room, listening intently as the millionaire and her team discussed the project. At first, he didn't say much, content to observe. But as the conversation turned to the importance of cultural understanding and communication, he found himself growing more and more engaged. The project required more than just translation. It required an understanding of the cultural nuances that shaped the way people communicated. Finally, the millionaire turned to him. "You've been quiet for a while," she said with a smile. "Do you have any thoughts?" The janitor cleared his throat, a bit nervous, but he could feel the words bubbling up inside him. "Actually, I do," he said, his voice steady but unsure. "I've worked with people from many different cultures, and I've found that language isn't just about words, it's about understanding the people behind those words. For example, when you're speaking with someone from another country, you have to understand their culture, their values, and their way of thinking. Without that, even the best translation can miss the mark." There was a brief silence in the room as everyone absorbed what he said. The millionaire watched the reactions of her colleagues, and she could see the surprise and admiration in their eyes. They hadn't expected the janitor to speak up, let alone offer such valuable insight. "That's exactly right," one of her colleagues said, nodding in agreement. "It's not just about translating words. It's about understanding the context, the emotions behind those words." The janitor's face lit up as he spoke more confidently. "Exactly. And that's something I've learned over the years. It's not just about knowing the language, it's about knowing the people. That's what makes communication meaningful." As the meeting continued, the millionaire saw a transformation in him. The man who had once been shy and humble, who had kept his talents hidden in the background, was now standing tall, speaking with confidence and authority. It was clear to everyone in the room that he had something valuable to offer. He wasn't just a janitor anymore. He was an expert, someone who had years of experience and knowledge that could benefit everyone around him. After the meeting, her colleagues approached the janitor with questions, eager to learn more from him. He was suddenly surrounded by people, all eager to hear his thoughts on language, culture, and communication. It was a far cry from the quiet man who had once spent his days cleaning floors in silence. The millionaire watched it all unfold with a sense of pride. She had known all along that he had the potential to do great things, but seeing him step into his own was something entirely different. He had found his voice, and it was a beautiful thing to witness. Later that evening, the janitor found her in the hallway. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice filled with gratitude. "I never thought I'd be able to do something like that. I've always kept to myself, but today was different. I felt like I really had something to offer." She smiled warmly at him. "You do have something to offer. You just needed the chance to show it. I'm proud of you." "I'm not sure where this will lead, but I'm willing to see where it goes," he said, his eyes filled with determination. "Maybe this is the start of something new for me." "I think it is," the millionaire replied, feeling a sense of joy that she couldn't quite put into words. "I think it's just the beginning." As she watched him walk away, she realized that he had found something even more important than a new job or a new title. He had found his purpose, and it was something that couldn't be taken away. The journey he had begun, the one that had started with simple curiosity and determination, was only just beginning to unfold, and for the first time in a long time, the millionaire realized that the greatest gift she could give him wasn't an opportunity. It was the chance to believe in himself. The next few months passed in a whirlwind of changes, both for the millionaire and the janitor. The meeting had marked the beginning of a new chapter for him, one where his skills and knowledge were no longer hidden in the background. The janitor, now more confident than ever, began to take on new projects with the support of the millionaire. He started to work on consulting roles for various departments, helping with cross-cultural communications, language training, and offering insights on global markets. The team was amazed at the depth of his understanding. They had never realized just how much he had to offer. The janitor had not only learned the mechanics of language, but also the way people from different cultures saw the world. His advice was invaluable, and soon, his role at the company expanded beyond just translating or offering cultural advice. He began to lead workshops, teaching staff about the importance of cultural sensitivity in business, and sharing the stories behind the languages he spoke. His confidence grew with every new project, and it wasn't long before he was invited to speak at conferences and seminars, where he was greeted with respect and admiration. The quiet man who had once scrubbed floors was now a sought-after expert, his insights shaping how international teams communicated with one another. His lectures were not just about the technicalities of language, but about how language shapes thought, how words can build bridges or create barriers, and how understanding others' cultures can make a world of difference in business and personal relationships. The millionaire couldn't have been prouder. She had seen something in him from the beginning, something others had missed, and now, Watching him stand in front of an audience, sharing his knowledge with a room full of people, filled her with a deep sense of satisfaction. She had helped him find his voice, but he had done the rest on his own. One day, after a particularly successful conference where the janitor had given a lecture about cultural barriers in international business, the millionaire met him in the lobby. He was beaming, his face glowing with pride. It was a side of him she hadn't seen before. His quiet humility had always kept him grounded, but now he seemed to be standing taller. More sure of himself. "That was incredible," she said, her voice filled with admiration. "I've never seen you speak like that before. The way you connected with the audience, it was like you had been doing this for years." The janitor laughed. A warm, genuine laugh. "I never thought I'd be up here talking to so many people. But I felt good. It's strange, but I feel like this is what I was meant to do." The millionaire smiled, feeling a rush of pride. "I knew you had it in you. All along, you had everything you needed. I just gave you a push, but you've done all the hard work yourself." He looked at her thoughtfully. "You've given me more than just a push, though. You've given me a chance to believe in myself, to see that I can be more than what I thought I could be." She nodded. "I'm just glad you took it. I knew you were capable of so much more than you realized. You've made a bigger impact than you'll ever know." The janitor paused for a moment, looking out the window as if reflecting on everything that had changed in his life. "It's funny," he said quietly. "I used to think that what I did, what I had, was all there was. I thought I was just a janitor. But now I see that I can be more. I can help people, teach them, and maybe make the world a little bit better." She placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice soft but firm. "You already have. You've changed not only your own life, but also the lives of everyone around you. You've inspired me, and you've inspired so many others. That's the real power of your story." He smiled, a genuine, peaceful smile, as if he had finally come to terms with his own journey. "I've learned that it's not about titles or jobs. It's about what you can offer, what you can teach others, and how you choose to use your abilities. You never know where your skills can take you if you just let them." The millionaire nodded, feeling a sense of deep respect for him. It was clear that he had changed, but it wasn't just about the external success. He had found a purpose, a deeper understanding of who he was and what he could contribute. He wasn't the same man who had quietly cleaned the floors. He had become a leader, a teacher, and a bridge between cultures. And it had all come from his own determination to keep learning, to keep growing, and to never stop believing in his potential. The janitor looked at her with a grateful expression. "I don't think I would have gotten here without you. You saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. You gave me the chance to be more than just the man who cleans the floors." She smiled, her heart full. "No, I didn't. You did that. You saw the chance and you took it. You chose to believe in yourself, and that's the most powerful thing anyone can do." As they stood there, talking about the future and all the possibilities it held, the millionaire realized that she had learned just as much from him as he had from her. She had learned the value of seeing potential in others, even when they couldn't see it in themselves. She had learned the importance of giving someone a chance, not just a job, but an opportunity to grow, to believe in themselves, and to become more than they ever imagined. She had been so focused on her own success for so long, but now she saw that true success wasn't just about building an empire or reaching the top. It was about helping others rise with you, about giving them the tools to find their own path. That, she realized, was the real measure of a person's legacy. The janitor continued to grow in his new role, traveling the world, sharing his knowledge, and touching the lives of many. He never forgot his roots. He never lost sight of the man who had started with nothing but a passion for learning. And though his life had changed, he remained humble, grateful for the opportunities that had come his way, and determined to keep learning, growing, and giving back. As for the millionaire, she knew that her own life had been forever changed by meeting him. She had learned the importance of seeing beyond appearances, of understanding the value of each person, no matter their job or background. She had seen firsthand how one person's belief in themselves could change the world around them. And as they both moved forward, they remained connected. Two people who had found a way to make a difference, not just in their own lives, but in the lives of others. They both knew that the journey was far from over, and that the best was yet to come.